Flosstube. Let's talk about some cross stitch today. I am Eleanor and this is my channel Rhymes with Favorite. Today is, what is today? Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. So I can't wait to talk to you. So you may have noticed that this is my second floss tube. The second one, you say? Why yes, Flosstube numero dos. However, with the first one, I ran into significant technical issues uploading and editing. Specifically, I was editing out the part where I told the entire internet that my mom died in the wrong time. Wait, no. This is just awkward. So, I told the entire internet that my mom died in the wrong year. And it was a brain-mouth mismatch based on transposing the year that she died with the day that she died. And I really couldn't leave it out there like that, and just putting a blurb on the screen didn't seem right. She was a real stickler for details and she deserved better. So the Flosstube by number one for Rhymes with Favorite may never even exist as far as you, my delightful viewers, are concerned. But maybe I'll release part of it as a Flosstube Extra or something at some point. But all that to say, I did learn a lot about inserting images and text on the screen because I always forget to tell you something important. I'm new here, you're new here, we're all new here, yay! And but it also had some good stuff, which I will try to mostly recap today. That was like almost a month ago, but a lot of the projects that I'm still working on are still in play. So maybe it'll go more smoothly because I've already said most of it at least once. We'll see. So what are we going to do today? An intro, and then I'll show you what I have been working on recently. I thought about doing a full-out whip parade, but I suspect this is going to go longer than I think it will. So I didn't want to spend too much time, suck up too much time on my first foray into Flosstube, so it'll probably be fairly long anyway. So hopefully you'll see some good stuff and you'll want to come back for more. And alright, let's get to it. I thought maybe I would start with the most important part of the missing chronicle of Rhymes with Favorite, which was my brief introduction. I'm a multi-crafter who happens to be spending most of my crafty time these days cross-stitching and or doing cross-stitch adjacent endeavors. I dye a lot of my own fabric and I make most of my own project bags because I love fabric and I love a good theme. I'm based in upstate New York and I've been stitching in one form or another for a long time, most of my life. I'm gonna pop a picture of the first thing that I know I stitched back in 1981 up here. It was a stitch piece I made for a relative's 25th anniversary, wedding anniversary, and I drew the design. My mom transferred it onto a piece of fabric for me so I could do the embroidery, and as the story goes, it was a mission to get me to finish it in time for the party. But it did get done. So this is just included as a testament to the beginning of my stitching journey. It seemed appropriate. As far as cross-stitch specifically goes, I have stitched things like Christmas ornaments fairly consistently on and off over the years, with some longer gaps. But I did take what most cross-stitchers would say was, you know, a longer break. And then came back to it in 2018 or so. I needed a creative thing I could do sitting on the couch. And I started watching Flosstube videos on my lunch breaks at work, probably in the late spring of 2019, right before May, because I remember talking specifically about Mania with a friend at the time, because she's on Facebook and I am not. And that's where a lot of the details about Mania were. So a lot of cross-stitchers who are entering their cross-stitch 2.0 phase era found that alright, we're going to start over. Like a lot of cross-stitchers entering our cross-stitch 2.0 phase, the hand-dyed fabrics, over-dyed floss, modern patterns, it was all just wonderful. Loved it, blew my mind. So I was hooked. And I think I decided to do 19 starts for Mania that year, and that was that. I am looking at some notes because one of the things I learned was that I needed some notes, but I think I may have overcompensated and made too many notes. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I said that a lot in the first video too. I'll probably still say it a lot. I'm always worried about how it's going to go. Anyway, I keep track of my whips, which are, if you're new to cross stitch, whips, W-I-P, is a work in progress. And I use a spreadsheet and photos on my phone. I've tried other methods, and this is one that I can keep up with fairly consistently. Other stuff I haven't managed to maintain. For the most part, I don't really track stitches or how long I stitch each day or week or other metrics, but I have recently started using Pattern Keeper for a few of my projects, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really fun seeing how many stitches I stitched for the day and how many more stitches I have to go for a given color, and what my percentage is. But I don't use that for everything. Sometimes I use paper patterns, sometimes I use a PDF in a plain old markup program, sometimes I make working copies. It really just depends on my mood and kind of what the project is like. I have had good luck importing things into Pattern Keeper when I have the PDF, but I have a lot of patterns that are not on PDF. So I stitch a wide variety of styles, although I'm not real big on samplers so far. I do have a couple in my whip pile right now, but I tend to lean more toward smaller and medium-sized projects, bearing in mind that small is relative. I'm definitely a project stitcher, not a process stitcher, and I stitch the stuff I want to see on my walls and around my house. That said, I'm also kind of a slow stitcher, pokey, if you will, and it can still take me a long time to get through a small piece, depending what I feel like working on. I do rotate projects just to keep it fresh, and you'll probably hear me talk about that a little bit more when I get into how I rotate my stuff. As for what I stitch when, I'm definitely, for the most part, a seasonal stitcher with a heavy side of emotional stitching. I stitch what I feel like, with the exception of spring and Halloween, kind of when I feel like doing them. I'll almost always stitch Halloween because it's my very favorite, and I tend to stitch spring pieces in the late winter because after the holidays, because winter in upstate New York will suck every ounce of joy and life out of your soul, and knowing that spring is coming is very important, and it's the only way to get through it. I do try to give myself some guidelines so I actually finish things eventually, and that often shows up in a personal version of WIPCO that I do. I had planned to talk about WIPCO, but you'll have to come back to hear about that maybe in Flosstube 3. I'm not doing WIPCO this month. When I do it, I tend to do it on a monthly card, and I'm not doing that for August. I'm gonna do arbitrary August because it seems like a better fit. So I think that's a good start. I do have some recent finishes and some previous finishes that I just really like and have been enjoying having up. So I thought I would show those to you. This first one that I have, and Vanna has the day off today, so I have to reach for my own projects and materials. And this is even though it looks like it's fully finished, it's not. I just put it in a hoop to kind of corral it. This is a little freebie from Bucilla or Plaid, and it's just this little tent, and he's super cute. This is the second time I have stitched this piece, and the first time I stitched it straight out, and the second time I wanted to do it kind of mirror image so that I could set the two pieces up side by side and it would look like a little campsite. But I gave the first one away. So this one is still mirror imaged, most of it. The tree parts and the grasses are not mirror imaged because I didn't actually mirror image the entire pattern. I just kind of winged it while I was stitching, and that's hard. Let's just leave it at that. It was not as easy as I thought. But I did have the presence of mind to make both of the flags go in the same direction. So if they do ever live side by side again, then it will look like the flags are blowing in the same direction of the wind. So I was pretty stoked I remembered that. And I put a campsite marker in it just to represent that this is the second time I stitched it. And it's just a little tiny tube. So that's really fun, and I will put a link to this piece down below. It's a freebie on the Plaid website, and there it is again. Just a little campsite. I like the outdoors. I'm not super outdoorsy, but I enjoy camping. It's just been a while since I went. Oh, this was stitched on some tea-dyed Monaco that I tea-dyed myself using most of the called for flosses in the pattern. I might have had to switch one out or should have switched one out. It's very hard to see. There are some clouds here, and I should have changed that floss color because of the fact that it disappears into the fabric, but I'm okay with it. So next up, I've got Road Trip by, I think this is Ursula Michael's designs, and I dyed this fabric to make it look a little bit like a sunset or a sunrise, and this is actually two patterns. There are two different campers, and they have a little bit different stuff. Like one of them has a satellite dish, and one of them has the barbecue, and one of them has a little flower box down here instead of the pond. So I sort of combined both versions, and I also completely changed out the colors because I wanted this to look a little more like an Airstream. So this is also, I don't know if this was a freebie or not. It may have been in just Cross Stitch magazine. I'm not positive. It's been around for a while, so it's not new. And it's just a nice little summery stitch. So, and then again, I put a campsite marker in with this year's year, 25, to represent that this is when I stitched it. I had also stitched the first one several years ago, but that lives in somebody else's house now. So next up, I've got two pieces from the Snowflower Diaries Joyful World Sal, and this was out several years ago. It was a stitch along, and there was one chart for each month, each with different animals, and I have been working my way through. This is one of the summer charts. I don't typically stitch words. It's very unusual for me to include words on a piece, unless it's what the piece is about. So I did not include the month because I like to have the flexibility to put stuff up, around whenever. So, and I also, this one originally had a little baby flamingo down here, and I have a soft spot for little frogs, so I made a little frog. So this little frog is just saying hey to the flamingos. So I kind of recharted the top a little bit and stuck a couple extra flowers in to replace where the month was. This might have been July. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But these borders on this go really quickly, and they're really fun to stitch. I really, really enjoy stitching these. And I try and stitch them on all the same count. There have been a couple that I stitched on different fabrics, just because I like to use a washer and magnet to kind of switch it out when I'm putting my pieces up. So I made this cording just with some embroidery floss, and so that's that one. And then next we've got another pattern from the same stitch along, and this might have been June, I don't remember, but I like to leave this up. My dad keeps bees, so I'm always in it for a good bee scalp, and this is just so pretty. I stitched this a while ago, and it was really fun to use a variegated DMC. I switched out the flosses. I think both of these, this one, the flamingos, was stitched on probably maybe 16 count Aida that I dyed, and then the bear is stitched on tea-dyed Monaco, and again, super cute border. It's consistent around every pattern, and the colors are different, but the border itself is consistent. My borders are not consistent because counting errors abound, and most of the time I just live with them. So that is a little sampling of some stuff that I finished or will be finishing. Excuse me, Flosstube is thirsty work. So, those are some fully finished things. Next, I've got a finished but not fully finished piece. And this is Antique Cats and Crowns by Shakespeare's Peddler. I put the chart away already. You would think I would learn. So, this is going to be a pillow. I do have a cat in my life, and her name is Mooch. And this is her pillow in progress. I did run into an issue with this when I was recharting. So this originally in the pattern said cats, and so I recharted it, and it is of course the exception to the rule. I put a word on it, but I didn't like the way my letters came out the first time that I stitched them, so I recharted the end of her name. And when I did that, because I had dyed this fabric, so this is Monaco, 28 count Monaco, that I dyed with some lemon yellow, I think is the actual color, and then I gave it a real quick dunk in some tea to tone it down a little bit, and when because the fabric, the fibers tightened up quite a bit, when I frogged the letters, they left really big holes, and so I thought, oh, maybe if I spritz it with some water, it will tighten back up. And I did a test with some stitching right there, and I spritzed it, and it didn't run. So I thought I was good. It was a lie. It's very hard to see. Oh no, you can see it. But the dye from my silk ran, which is a huge bummer. But she a cat, and from a distance, it's not really noticeable. I've tried lots of different things to, I tried many ways to remove where the dye ran, and none of them have worked, so I'm just gonna live with it because this is a lot of stitching, and it was fun stitching. I used a Belsois silk, and then I think at Classic Colorworks in Honeycomb, the silk. I'll have to look and see what the silk color was. And then in her eyes, I used a Dinky Dyes silk called Corn Silk, which is coincidentally almost exactly the same color as the fabric that I dyed, so they don't really show up as individual stitches, but that's okay. They're in there. So, and I also dyed some cotton to do the back. The reason I picked light yellow is because Mooch really loves to sit in sunbeams, and we call her Princess Sunbeam. So, we also call her Princess Naps a lot. So, this is a pillow fit for royalty. And this one I kept in, this is a project bag that I made with Mary Poppins Returns fabrics. And the front has a really fun, pretty zipper, and this ruler fabric was kind of a nod to measuring up in the first movie. So, alright, next I've got an Owl Forest embroidery free stitch along, and this is it's the Alice in Wonderland. So I have it in an Alice in Wonderland bag that I made years ago. And, oh gosh, all my needle minders are sticking to everything. So this is a really pretty, really fun stitch along. And it was in like 19 parts. And so I started in the center, and this was back in 2021. So in my infinite wisdom, I decided that it would be great to stitch it on, sorry, I have some notes here, and I'm in my tablet, and I'm just not really set up for this. I mean, I'm set up for this, but I haven't worked out all the kinks. Is that how it goes? So, I started in the center, and here's my little center stitch. I was kind of experimenting at the time, and I thought, oh, I'm going to stitch it 1/1 on 28 count Monaco, and then it won't be quite so big, and I can make myself a nice pillow to put in my library, and that will be fun. It's not. I stitched about half of this gate section, and I started it during Mania, so it was just kind of a small start, and then I put it away, and it stayed away for a long time. Sarah Stitchery mentioned in her Instagram a few weeks ago that she was going to restart hers. She had also started it, but she didn't love her fabric and she didn't love her floss, and she had grown a lot as a stitcher, so she was going to restart it. And I thought, well, maybe I should take mine out and take a look at it and give it another chance and see. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been chipping away a little bit at a time as kind of an Alice August sort of thing to try and get a little progress. And I'm not doing that. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I love all of the sections, and the piece is lovely. I'm thinking maybe Christmas ornaments for kind of a library themed Christmas tree, or just little bits to hang up here and there around my house. But I'm definitely not going to stitch it as a pillow. I don't have a library space anymore, in my living space, and it's just not fun stitching on this because, so I tea-dyed this fabric and then I faded it back a little bit with some Oxy Boost. So these threads are snug. It's a tight stitch even with just one strand. I am stitching it with a 3-color option that Owl Forest offered in their chart, and I'm using some variegated DMCs, and these are just some floss drops that I made. I mentioned I love a good theme. And it's not, I enjoy what I'm stitching, I do not enjoy the physical stitching, so it's no fun. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I may salvage this center bit and kind of stitch the rest of it, probably 2/2. Maybe 1/2 would look fun and kind of prim, because it is pretty tight. And I'm not sure I'm committed to the 3-color palette anymore either. It would be fun in its own, you know, like I said, as a pillow, but I'm not positive that I want to stick with that, whatever I do going forward. So this is, this is also gonna fit Marjorie, made by Marjorie Makes, made by Marjorie. Shoot, I know this. It's gonna fit her pick-a-whip prompt for August, which is a neglected whip, and this was sadly neglected 4 years, solid 4 years. All right, what else have I been working on? Oh, speaking of her pick-a-whip project, this is going to be my tomato project, and it is, so this is what sent my first floss tube off the rails entirely. This is Maggie the Messmaker. It is a Dimensions Gold kit, and it's super fun, and it has a backstory. This one does, for me personally. So my mom was sick in 2004, and she couldn't concentrate to read, which was her very favorite pastime. So she decided that she was going to work on a Dimensions Gold full coverage kit that is massive. And so she kitted up all the flosses, and she put them in this box, and she gridded her fabric, because if Easy Grid fabric existed at the time, we didn't know about it. And she stitched part of the sewing machine and maybe a tiny bit of the cat. This is the cat, but she died later that fall, so I inherited this piece, and I pick it up and work on it now and then. I started working on it probably in 2005. Oh, this is my the very first needle minder I ever bought. I never finish anything, and I thought it was apropos because this is a full coverage piece and it's really big. But it has a tomato on it. It's got a little stitchy tomato, and one of Marjorie's prompts this month is tomato, so I thought it would be fun to take this out. And I also recently made a new project bag for this. I wanted to keep all of these flosses and stuff because my mom touched them and wrote on them, and they have, you know, I remember her working on them, so I wanted to keep all this. And the original project bag that I made barely held either the project or the flosses, but not both. So I made a new project bag using cattails fabric, which isn't quite the same, but it's by the same, it's from a fabric line based on designs by the same designer. The Maggie the Messmaker is a Charles Wysocki print, and it's from the either the late 90s or the very early 2000s. Mom started this in 2004. So this project bag fits it all plus some. It's really roomy, so maybe I overcompensated. I don't know, but it is a fun piece, and I tend to pull it out during the winter when it's kind of snowy, because it is like kind of there's snow in the background. But I've gotten all of this stuff in since my mom started it. So it's slow going. There are a lot of blended threads, which I did set up on their own bobbins, and kind of gave myself a little cheat sheet in my floss key. And this is just a really fun little magnet that I was using to hold my fabric around my Q-snap. These guys don't exist anymore. I wanted to buy some more because hedgehogs are super cute, and I couldn't find them online, so that was a bummer. But I put them out there in case you wondered. Okay, so that's Maggie the Messmaker. Next up, I've got Peacock, which is a pincushion by Cottage Garden Samplings. And I just started this one in late July, and it's very pretty. Mine is being stitched. Oops, I lost keeping it in a Star Wars bag. That's my spring stitch. I did have a board to put my pieces up against, but I guess we're not going to do that today. I'm stitching this 2/2, and this is on Vintage Stormy Night, I'm pretty sure. You know what? Let's look at my whip list. You would think I'd be prepared. I'm not. Surprise. Where's my whip list? Cross stitch whips. Now it's really, really small. And it's way at the end because it's one of the last things I've been working on. Come on. Ugh. My tablet is just not responding. Mercury was in retrograde, but now we're in the post shadow, and it still affects technology and communication. It's a good time. Okay, this is just plain old not working. I'll have to look up what I'm actually stitching this on. I am using some of the called for flosses and subbed out a couple of the colors with a couple of overdyed, and they're going to show up really dark. The lighting is not great today. The sun is out, but it's shady. So, but this is the palette, and it's very pretty. And as we work through my whips, you will see that I am completely inconsistent about how I kit up my flosses. So, next, we've got Cute Bathroom by Stitchy Princess on Etsy. And I don't have a great picture of project. I'll put it up here. And this is what I've got. I am stitching this on, I think, Whisper Lugana. I'll have to double check. Wait, maybe that information I do have. Maybe that information I can give you, because I put it in the notes that I drew up to talk about. Nope, I didn't get that far in my notes. Because see, my notes are really big. They're long, they're wordy. There's a lot of them. Anyway, I'm changing the flosses. The original, as you saw in my when I popped it up, was really bright colors, and I love bright colors. Yes, that's a flamingo quote behind me. But I wanted this to be a little more serene because I'm going to put it in my bathtub, in my bathroom. So I have been stitching this kind of in chunks because it's really big block stitching pieces. And I've worked my way down to a really good size white bathtub. I don't adore stitching white, and so I kind of work a bit of white, and then I work a color, and then I work a bit of white, and then I work color. I also, when I'm stitching really long bits, I stitch 10 stitches, and if I'm using DMC, I stitch just one leg, and then I cross my 10th stitch as I'm going along, so it makes it a little easier to count. That's not to say it always works, but it makes it a little easier. And this is in a project bag that just has some fun sewing machine stuff on it. And I used a little bit of contrasting fabric on the front. So there's that. Next up, I've got the gorgeous Cabin in the Woods. I have a hard time with my bifocals, so please excuse me for being a bit of a bobblehead. Anyway, this is Cabin in the Woods. It's from Flossabilities. I dyed my own fabric to match the called for, which was, I think, Zweigart Slate Gray, and I dyed a 36 count Modena using charcoal and just a tiny scotch of indigo, and this is how far I've gotten. And my fabric came out a little bit lighter than I planned and hoped, so I may need to change at least one floss color for the top of the trees and the other places this is used, just because, and it's also partly an unfortunate coincidence that it's hitting right where my modeling is. It's almost too light. I mean, in real life you can see it, especially if you kind of look at the stitches from different angles, but I think it's too light for this fabric. Otherwise, I am using almost all the called for flosses. I do have a full set of DMC. It is sprinkled out around my projects, and unfortunately one of the colors that I wanted to, one of the called for colors, I didn't have in my box. I either couldn't find it or I've used it up some other place. And so I used my DMC thread card, which I forgot to grab. It is hands down one of the best cross-stitching tools I have ever used. I use it all the time. I'll put up a picture of one. You know what? Hang on. I'm gonna pull. Okay, we're back. So this is the thread card, and the one I have has actual thread in it, and it's amazing for picking substitutions for colors. And I received it as a gift, and I must use this 2 or 3 times a week, depending what I'm stitching and what part of the process I'm in. I absolutely cannot recommend enough how much it was worth the investment to get the piece, get the card that has the actual thread on it. So it's this light brown is the one that I'm gonna have to substitute, that I have substituted, and whatever I subbed in is almost identical in terms of, this is in a cow bag that I made, and this one I'm doing using Pattern Keeper, and here are the flosses. It's wonderful. It's so pretty. And one of the fun things about Pattern Keeper is that it gives you your stitch count for each color, and I as kind of an experiment, I used the stitch count to guesstimate how many lengths of each floss I was going to need. So I realized that my full set of DMC is pretty well sprinkled around my projects, and it was looking a little sparse. So I decided to put these on floss drops and put my the full bobbins back in the kit. So this was fun. I did something similar with another project that I've got coming up next or soon, and so we'll see when I get it all stitched. I just threw a needle down the floor. We'll see when I get it all stitched. Got it. It's back. How close I was with my guesstimates. And it was, I mean, there was nothing scientific about it whatsoever. I don't know how many stitches I get per inch or anything like that. So, we'll see. Next up is a fun little freebie from, who is this? This is the Ladybug Queen by the Little Stitcher on the internet. She has an Etsy store. This was a freebie, and it's in this. It's in my spring bag, which is all these little bunnies. This is a fat quarter I got, maybe at Joann's. R.I.P. Joann's. Man, I miss you so much. We all do. It's a freebie on her website, but you have to, it's not on her freebie page. You have to do a Google search for it. And she didn't stitch a model for it, so there isn't a great picture to show you. It was intended to be a needle book, so the pattern is 2 pieces, and I'm only stitching 1/2, but it is this, and so still have a couple flowers, and there are a couple more ladybugs to do in here. I can't show you a picture of the finished piece because A, I haven't finished it, and B, I couldn't really find anything online. I mean, if you Google the Ladybug Queen by the Little Stitcher, it comes right up, but there aren't any photos out there. And in her blog post, she mentioned specifically that stitching it will be a surprise for you and for her. So I'm doing that, and I am stitching this on a piece of, I think this is 28 count linen from, it was just white linen from Charles Craft. I dyed it using just green, and I subbed DMC flosses from my stash, just to make it pop nicely. Next up, I've got, how are we doing? 45 minutes. See, I told you we couldn't talk about WebGo. Next up, I've got Fox by Happy Little Mouse on Etsy, and this uses, it's got the most fun, bright palette. I'm doing this one in Pattern Keeper, and so I did my whole little experiment with the flosses again. It's got quite a few colors, but this is in a bag I made using fabric I got for ages ago, maybe 7-8 years ago at Joann's, and it's just the happiest little forest of owls. But this is how far I've gotten. It's kind of the center bit of the curled up fox. This is another piece of Modena that I dyed. I picked purple because one of the photos in the reviews of the chart on Etsy had the stitcher had used purple, and it looked super cozy. So I thought, yeah, I want to do that. So here's my purple, and it's just like a, I think I used scarlet and indigo, just red dye, and it's not, maybe there's a tiny bit about modeling, but it's not, certainly not variegated. Alright, so hang on, we need to hydrate a little bit more. Like in a lot of places around the world these days, it has been very, very warm in New York. We're looking at another 90-degree day today, so that's very exciting. I'm trying to film early before it gets heated up. Yesterday I closed up my whole flat and just left everything, all the windows closed, and I didn't have to run the air conditioner, which was wonderful. I don't like being hot, but I also don't like how loud my air conditioner is. Alright, next up is my travel piece, which I started in the spring when I wound up having I knew I was going to be on an airplane, and then I knew I was going to be stitching for a while in kind of uncertain conditions. So I picked a very simple fabric and very simple palette, and I'm doing the Quaker postcard, which is another freebie from Stone Street Stitchworks, and I have it in this little vegetable bag that I made. I don't even know where I got this fabric. It may have been acquired from a hoard by a relative. I don't remember. I do have a little kind of scissor keeper. These are just cheapy scissors from Green Dollar. But I am stitching this on white Aida. This is 16 count Aida with Mermaid Spin by Classic Colorworks, and it takes a lot of thread. I have two skeins going, because I'm trying to keep my variegation kind of consistent, and I'm almost halfway. So I'm just stitching it one strand, and it's really fun. I said I don't stitch a lot of samplers, but this is actually really handy for traveling. And this is my first Quaker, and I have to say, I really enjoy it because it's easy to see if you goof before too long. You can't get too committed to having an error in there because it's so symmetrical. I also, in the spring, I got to go to the attic outside Phoenix, the attic needle workshop, and it was wonderful. It was completely overwhelming. So I picked up a needle minder. Among other things. I picked up a few other things. Let's be realistic. So this is my Quaker postcard, and it's big. It's not a postcard size. So this is a freebie from them, and I stitch a lot of freebies. At this particular moment, I am unemployed, which is a bummer. So my stitching budget is practically nil right now. So I'm stitching from stash, and I have hoarded a lot of free patterns over the years. So they're coming in really handy, and some of them are gorgeous full-size patterns. When you think freebies, sometimes you think they're just little, but you know, the designers are so generous. So it's really been a lot of fun stitching on the Quaker postcard, and it's great. I can stitch it in a variety of lighting conditions. I only have one strand, so I don't have to do too much fiddling when it comes to threading my needle and keeping things tidy. And it's been a really good travel project, so I just kind of keep it with me when I think I might be going someplace where I'm going to have a little bit of time on my hands that I can use to stitch. And then finally we've got, oh, here's another. I'm hard on flosses. So this is Mermaid's Fin, and it's very dark blue, almost to navy, but it's got this really pretty variegation. So I had been waiting for a long time to use that floss. And finally, I've got Madame Chantilly Pumpkin Thieves. This is my current Dark 13 stitch. And like I said, I love Halloween. This is an awesome pattern. It's super fun. Look at that little witch and her little black cat sidekick making off with all those pumpkins. I have to tell you though, this dirigible thing, it's massive. There are so many stitches in it. It's huge. Here, you can see. It's like the size of my head. So this is where I'm at. This is on Haunted by Picture This Plus. I think I'm stitching it on 36 count. Maybe it's 32. I'm doing it 1/2 with not the called for flosses. I'm using some DMCs that I subbed out, and what is my black floss? Wrought Iron by Gentle Art is the black. So the way I'm tackling this is, my plan is to get this whole dirigible outlined, and the cat, and then go in and work on some of the fun pumpkins, and then work on some of this fill-in. and then work on some of this fill-in, and then work on some of this fill-in. So I need to parse it out so that I don't give up. But it is a fun stitch. That said, there are 9 stitches here in this cat's chin. Hour and a half. Hour and a half. Dark stitching was very dark last month. I'm almost afraid to pick this up tomorrow, but I'm gonna. Something, I don't know if it was my eyes or the light or the fabric or all three. I was using magnifier. I think the magnifier actually caused more problems than it solved. But I stitched and frogged and stitched and frogged. I can't tell you how many times trying to get it in there straight because I was off either by 1 thread or 2 threads, whatever. And then I got all the way up here, and when I went to meet up his ear with the top of his forehead, it was still off by 1 thread. I was ready to spit. So, but I persevered. It's right now. Everything else may be wrong with this, but I know for a fact that this guy's right. So, this is Pumpkin Thieves and where I've gotten so far with Pumpkin Thieves. And I don't always leave things in my hoops or Q-snaps, depending what I'm stitching them in. But when I know that I'm going to be picking them up again soon, and I have been working on all of these on and off, then I leave them unless I have to move them. I do wrap my hoops in twill tape, the insides, to help kind of protect my fabric, and it does cut down on hoop marks. And if I'm leaving something in a Q-snap for a while, I loosen it up so that it's really baggy and not pulling too much. So I think that's everything I wanted to show you today. Still at an hour. What a surprise. What are my plans coming up? In August, I want to work some more on all of these pieces. I put them all into a Tiny Decisions wheel for Arbitrary August. Tiny Decisions is a free app. There are paid options too in the app, but I get by with the free one. And every few days I'm spinning it to see what I want to work on. Helps keep me fresh. I'm thinking already about what I want to do in September. This month, in addition to this stuff, I also may try and make a dedicated project bag for my Cabin in the Woods project. I don't have any fabric that's like screaming fabric Cabin in the Woods right now, so which is why I just got it in my cow bag. And I have a couple other. I want to finish Mooch's pillow into a pillow, fully finish it, and I have a couple other fabric projects that I'm stitching projects that I want to work on. My living space right now is not terribly craft conducive, so I have to kind of batch up when I work on my sewing machine and things like that. So I should probably also hem the edges of some of the pieces that I have right now that just have raw edges. Their fabric I don't have a serger, but I just use a zigzag stitch. And I think that's pretty much it. If you made it this far, thank you so much for spending your time with me. There are so many floss tubers out there, so many awesome floss tubers out there. I'm really excited that you found me and stuck with me for an hour. I'm going to try and edit this and get it posted. Let's get this posted. Oh, these guitars are not mine. I sublet. And the guitars belong to the apartment owner. So let's just nip that conversation in the bud. The guitar is not mine. I do not play the guitar. Love music, don't play the guitar. So we'll see how this all goes, and hopefully, probably sometime next month, I will get back to you with another Flosstube, and we'll see some progress and talk about what September's going to do. So, thank you so much. I am Eleanor, Rhymes with Favorite on Instagram. I have an email address that I'll put in the notes down below. It's rwfstitches@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. And if you have any questions or anything, drop a comment or reach out, and I would be happy to answer them. Like, subscribe. I hope you want to subscribe. Hit the bell. Do all the things. And until next time, I hope you have a lot of stitchy goodness in your life. So, thank you.